Hello, hello, and welcome back to Shelter. We're still cooking with Burry, having a good time, slipping and sliding, all good, all good. Burry helps me to my feet and pats my back. Then he glances into the jug with leftover wine. Sorry for drinking and spilling the wine. Now you don't have enough for your own sauce.
Oh, do not let it weigh on your conscience, Luke. We would have not had nearly enough for my amount of meat regardless. Not that it was necessary in the first place. Cheers, Luke, for your first skies ablaze.
Burry brings the jug to his mouth and chugs down the last of the wine with a couple of big gulps. That's unexpected. Burry rarely drinks. Definitely never at work. But then again, we technically aren't at work anymore. It's just a casual hangout, and he's clearly having fun. That makes me happy, too. So, you're saying the wine isn't necessary?
Indeed, it is not. The simplified recipe I had prepared for you lacked wine, butter, and some vegetables, and yet I do not consider that version much inferior. There are many ways to approach this recipe. This one is simply my personal favorite.
Excuse me.
It takes a few more steps and ingredients, but I know you will appreciate the extra effort. Now, Luke, we are about to reach the final step of your quest.
Really?
Yes. Your journey might have been long and challenging, with many wounds suffered as a reminder of your trials. But keep comfort in the fact that your sacrifice is not going to be for naught. Soon, you shall taste victory. The spoils of divine smells and flavors are within your reach, Luke.
Hurrah! Hooray, yes. Whatever, It's fine. It's late. I don't even know what these words are.
Wipe the floor, so you don't slip again. I will, bring mashed, tomatoes.
Okay. The next steps are very straightforward. Once the pot stops us smelling of booze, we dump mashed tomatoes into our pots to be the base of the whole sauce. And then some more salt, much more black pepper, a nice big sprinkle of oregano, and a much more careful one of basil.
You can allow yourself to be fairly generous with the oregano and black pepper, but be mindful to not overdo it with basil or salt. Those can overpower and unbalance the composition. Remember, Luke, you can always add more salt and spices into the dish if it is lacking. It is impossible to take away if you overdo, though. Stir it, and then, in a minute, give it a minute for the spices to release the flavor, and then taste it.
I do as Burry tells me. I stir the spices into the sauce, give it a moment, and grab a tablespoon to take a sample of the sauce. Even before I taste the sauce, I can already tell from the scent alone that it's perfect. I nearly shout in happiness, and I look to Burry. A curious smile curls at his muzzle. Burry, it's delicious, meaty and spicy, and a little sweet, and...
May I have a taste?
Of course, here. In my excitement, I don't even wipe my tablespoon before I take another sample of it to present to him. I catch him in an awkward situation, where he's in the process of reaching for my pot with his own clean spoon, and I present him a sample in front of his mouth to feed him. Sorry. I linger for a moment, and then start to slowly move my hand back. Burry leans in closer and starts blowing on the sample in the spoon that I'm holding. Then he opens his mouth and eats it. For a moment, I feel a bit embarrassed about spoon-feeding Burry like that, but then I remember all the times when Burry fed me whenever I was bedridden. This isn't weird for us. Burry nods and smiles. Then his brows furrow slightly, and he raises his finger, as if to say some kind of correction. But it stops, lingers for a moment, and sighs.
Yes, Luke. It is perfect. Wonderful job.
Really?
Indeed. The meat and vegetables are well cooked. The spices are not overpowering. And it is absolutely delicious. It is going to go great with the noodles. Splendid, Luke. I expect nothing less of you.
Burry puts his big, clawed hand over my head and pets it, with a big, proud smile on his, beautiful, wide muzzle. I couldn't, be any happier.
Why does your hair feel crusty?
He leans in closer and sniffs my head from up close. He's so close, that I can feel his warmth, a pleasantly smelling breath.
When did you get your hair in raw meat?
Probably when you...
Well, good thing we are going to have a bath soon. You are going to enjoy it after standing by the pot for so long. I always do.
Are we done then? Are we, ready to serve and dig in?
Oh, no. While it is true that we have reached the final step, this one is also the longest and arguably the hardest. We are going to let it simmer on low heat. Let the sauce thicken a little.
How long? Like 10 minutes? Like 10 hours?
Ideally, we would leave it for something between 4 to 6 hours.
No way. We don't have that much time. I'm hungry.
Do not worry, Luke. We are not going to stay here as long. Less than an hour will be enough. We will use a little trick to get what we want, without starving to death in the process. That shall give us time to prepare the noodles and our table, and have a little rest.
It's going to be hard to wait so long with the smells in the kitchen.
At least you're not a canine. That would be even harder.
Sometimes I wish I was. I mean, like, right now I wish I could smell it in the same way as you can. Even here, I'm probably missing out on so many nice details in the smells. I nervously clear my throat and look away. I slip some, unnecessary, words out, but I really don't want to bother Burry with my existential crisis. Stop it, Luke.
You know, you can smell like me if you want, even if, just for a brief moment.
Oh, that's right, canine mana.
You probably have, not done that in a while.
No, it's, been so peaceful for so long, there was no need to.
I am the same. Peace makes one grow rusty in regards of magic. Yet if you wish, I will attempt to share my mana with you.
I stand and think. Looking at Burry in silence, I'm nervous about his idea, because dealing with mana of another species can be straining and overwhelming, but a part of me is excited. Neither me nor Burry are strangers to the interracial side of magic. We rarely use that in something so casual, though. All living beings of conscious thoughts produce mana throughout the course of their lives. The energy seeps out of people's bodies and takes part in the natural cycle, cultivating new life and fueling other natural phenomenon. It has also been burnt to activate certain abilities. Each species has their own abilities specific to their mana type. No person can internally produce mana of another species, but it can be transferred between species for a brief use. That can happen in a few ways. Burry is so exceptionally skilled in controlling the flow of mana that he can pass it to me by touch. If he does, I can then burn it. There are a few types of intensity of how mana can be burnt. The most basic one, when used by another species, is to heighten one's senses close to the natural level of the mana's original species. For example, when the dogs burn my mana, they say they can see and think clearer than even than even for a brief moment. Clearer than ever for a brief moment, okay. When I burn canine mana, I can smell better, and I see in the dim light, and yes. In short, Burry wants to pass some of his canine mana so I can briefly smell the simmering meat sauce in as much detail as he can. Do you think that's wise? I haven't done that in a while.
I believe so. Simply heightening one's senses is not as straining as a process as your mana vision or our pack mentality. Those abilities take effort to master regardless of species. If you try to reach pack mentality, it would be like when you had the stove set on max heat, and you were not able to take a moment of rest in stirring the meat, or else it would burn. You using my mana to amplify your body is simply is similar to how the pot is right now, simmering on low heat. Very little is happening, and we can have rest.
I know. It's just been so long.
I will not force you if you do not want it. That was only a suggestion.
I want it. Let's do it.
Okay then. Give me a moment, please.
Burry takes a deep breath and puts one of his hands on my chest. He stands still in silence, with his arm in position resembling open palm martial arts techniques. If I were to use mana vision now, I'm certain that I could see rapid flow of mana within his body, concentrating at his hand. He's preparing it to pass to me.
Relax, Luke.
Before I even have a chance to reply, he takes away his hand that he had on my chest. At the same time, he uses his other hand to strike a spot with his open palm. I lose my breath for a moment, and I'm pushed a step back, but Burry was mindful enough of his strength to not cause any real injury. He would never hurt me.
It failed, did it not?
Did it? The big dog groans in disappointment and crosses his arms. Lost in thought, he looks irritated and embarrassed.
I was unaware of how out of shape I had gotten. As soon as I manifested mana on my palm, it was pulled away and dispersed by Shelter. I could not keep it in place. That would not have been an issue in the past. I have neglected my training in many ways.
Hey, it's okay. It wasn't for anything important anyway. The fact that you can still manifest mana at will alone shows that you haven't completely lost your edge. You are at a great handicap here in Shelter. It can't stay stable in its ethereal form because it's constantly being pulled away by the relics.
Indeed. I can coat my palms with it, but the moment I move to strike, it imbalances so much that I lose my hold of it.
It's okay. I'll just enjoy the smell the normal way. I put my hand on his shoulder and smile. Thank you for trying. Burry smiles back, but his tense expression lingers.
Trying is not enough. I want to give you that experience.
Nothing we can do about it. Don't let it bother you.
There is something we could try, if you are willing.
Try what?
You see, it is not a process well understood by most people, but I can share a bit of my mana through fluids. Only if you are willing. I could concentrate my mana into my saliva and share it in a kiss. That way Shelter would not have a chance to siphon it. Mana concealed in fluid is more raw, more difficult to release for the burning process. But do not worry, I will assist you in initiating the release of the burning. After that, however, you will have to control it yourself. But I am certain that you are up to the task. You have always been decent at burning and controlling mana. The only question is this something you would be interested in?
I mean...
Just so you are aware, I have no hidden intentions. This is a simple ritual that I have learned in the course of my studies, completely, pragmatic, with no romantic undertones whatsoever.
I know, totally.
So,
Let's do it. I look into Burry's face and nod. I try to be casual about it, but I'm 100% sure that he sees me turning all red. I'm pretty certain that I can see him blushing under his fur too. Burry nods back and steps close to me. He reaches one of his hands towards my torso again, but this time slips it under my shirt, so I can feel his rough hand pads resting over my chest.
that is so I can guide thee and ignite your mana easily, through your bare skin.
Yeah. This is so embarrassing, and I know it shouldn't be. I've known Burry for the longest time. Longest time out of all the shelter dogs, and I should feel casual with him about silly things like physical contact. And yet, when his other hand reaches behind my head, and I watch his hand drawing closer and tilting for the kiss, I feel weak in my knees, and my heartbeat doubles in pace. I can feel the warmth of his breath brushing over my lips as he lingers for a moment before he finally leans in our open mouth contact. The big dog is gentle and careful. His warm, wide, and wet tongue rubs against my teeth for a moment, and then he goes further to meet my own tongue. We lock in a slow, gentle kiss, with both of our tongues playing with each other. I can feel his short muzzle fur over my smooth skin, and a few times my mouth brushes against his sharp, pointy teeth. I'm completely lost in the moment, and I forget the world around me. I wish that we could stay in this kiss forever, with his hands caressing my bare chest. Suddenly, he pauses.
Here.
Out of the blue, I feel a shock within my chest, as if lightning has struck me. I stumble back blindly a few steps.
Luke, are you okay? My apologies. I must have miscalculated and used too much mana. Our connection was much clearer than I expected.
It's fine. It'll be fine. Just give me a... moment. As I regain my senses, I start getting overwhelmed by unbelievably complex, wonderful scents. Those sensations are so intense that my mind becomes cloudy, and I start losing balance. As I stumble, Burry comes to my side and puts his arms around my waist. I cling to his shirt for support.
How does it feel?
Over time, I manage to get a better hold of myself and regain control over my body. This isn't my first time using canine mana. I shouldn't act like a complete amateur. It used to be so much easier.
I know. Nice. I am the same. This is like any other skill. If you do not practice for a long time, you get rusty. But you seem to be fine now. How is the sauce?
I close my eyes and take a slow breath through my nose, bathing myself in a waterfall of fragrances. Finally, I can experience everything that I was blind towards all this time. I can smell so many dimensions of sweet meats and herb scents, and emanating from the pot. All of them are clear, distinct, and feel so familiar, even though I'm sure I couldn't smell them in my natural state. Not only are they stronger, but they also reach towards my heart and mind, bringing back emotions, sensations, and memories from the past. Scents are so closely connected to those. I feel my body getting warm as the butter and the sauce brings me back to my first time I ever ate a sweet pastry. The tomato moves me through windy meadows, and the meat makes me ravenous. I tremble and let out a growl as the smell of fried fat and flesh speak to my most primal instincts. I can feel drool dripping down my chin. A soft piece of cloth is pressed under my chin, and I notice Burry wiping me. He has an amused smile on his face.
I take it that you like it.
When Burry's hand wipes the saliva off my face, I take a brief whiff of his hand, so rich in all kinds of different food, and then the scent of sweat and musk hits me. That's Burry's scent. My mind brings me back to the past many years. I wake up under heavy, rough-feeling rugs in an embrace of a giant, thick-furred dog. I feel so cold. I know I was at the edge of death. But the dog is the miracle that keeps me from fading away. Both of us are naked, and I'm enveloped in his warmth. I can feel his chest heaving slowly, and his breath brushes over my head. He's asleep. I had never been so close in this way to anyone before. Despite my dire circumstances, I feel happy. I embrace him back and rest my head against that big fluffy chest. He has a deep, earthy scent. It doesn't smell like anything else, and yet it will always be his scent to me. His scent is special, one of a kind, the scent of safety, wisdom, and power. This is how deeply canines recognize each other, by scent on a daily basis. I can remember people's faces and by sight. I can learn how their voices sound like. The canines, however, they remember others by scent. The one sense that has such a close connection to our subconscious feeling. It's so intimate and honest. Is that why they can connect and grow familiar with each other so easily, while to me there's a lengthy process? How could I possibly become a true part of the pact without this ability? How could I?
Does my hand smell that tasty to you?
I'm sorry, I got carried away.
No harm done. It brings me joy to see you enjoying yourself so much. I wish I were able to participate. Appreciate my natural abilities as much as you do.
I bet you still do. I don't think you can get completely jaded to things like that.
Indeed, but that surely cannot comprehend the heights of sensations experienced by someone like you, who is naturally absent of them.
Yeah, this is probably how a deaf person can feel if they got to hear music for the first time.
Or me using your mana to see in as much detail as you naturally can, or to be able to think in those complex, abstract ways that your mind does.
I really don't think that's anything special until you attempt mana vision.
And that is how I think about my own senses. Nothing special until you attempt pack mentality. Yet, you seem to enjoy that little piece of myself, just as I assume you, just as I assure you, I enjoy yours when I have the chance.
Aw. Well, I wish I had such a good control over my mana as you, so I can share it with you too. I mean, without sustaining wounds.
It's okay, Luke. Both of our species have their perks. Let us embrace those differences and make the best of them.
Burry puts his hand on my head and pets it with a cheerful smile. I smile back. Even though I don't feel that good about this situation, this whole embracing our differences business. You remember how to use mana control. Okay. Alright. I'll end the part here, so I will see you around, everyone.